Hi folks, and welcome to the Meaningful Money Podcast. This is Season 17, Episode 11. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you put your finances in order. My name is Pete Matthew, and I'm going to share with you everything you need to know and everything you need to do to secure your financial future. I'm here to help you make sense of money. Here we are once again. Thank you so much for your company. Now, long-term care is a looming, unpleasant prospect, let's face it, for many folks who are retired. In nearly 25 years of doing my job, I've had loads of conversations about it, and actually quite a bit has changed in that time, not necessarily for the better. So we're going to be talking about long-term care today. After the main body of the show, I'll look at a couple of reviews that have been left by listeners, announce what we're going to be talking about next week. But first, as ever, this podcast continues to be brought to you with the help of my very kind friends at 7 Investment Management. They've been helping me out here, supporting Meaningful Money since the spring of 2011, and I'm so grateful to them for doing that. Literally could not have built this to what it is without their help. So please do check out what they're up to and say thank you to them from me. 7im.co.uk. That's the number 7im.co.uk. And this podcast is brought to you by Meaningful Academy, which is the best place I know of to learn how to take control of your finances, whether you're starting out, learning how to budget, and wondering about life insurance and what a pension is versus an ISA and stuff like that. Or if you're a serious wealth builder, wanting to know how to build a portfolio, to manage volatility and risk, how to plan for your future. Everything you need to know about all of that is at meaningfulacademy.com. So go check it out. Now, none of us likes really to think about the prospect of, not being able to look after ourselves. It honestly does feel like we come full circle, doesn't it? We go from being dependent on our parents to being fully independent as adults, only then potentially to become dependent on others again as our health fails in later life. Not a cheery subject for today's show. But many of you listening to this and watching it will be thinking about this already. Many more will be approaching this stage for your parents. Hands up. Yes, I'm in that boat. And as much as we'd like not to think about it, we do need to be prepared for action if and when the time comes. So, long-term care today. Remember, notes and links from today's show, they're at the show notes, is the only link you need to remember. If you can't write this down, just remember this, meaningfulmoney.tv/RP11. That's for retirement planning, episode 11. meaningfulmoney.tv/RP11. Let's kick things off with everything you need to know. Okay, first thing we need to know is that care needs are a spectrum, if you like. So when we're talking about long-term care, we're not just talking about residential care in a care home, right? There's a lot more between that and being fully able, right? Between being fully able and needing round-the-clock care in a facility of some kind. There's lots of shades of grey in between those two extremes. Many people choose to receive care at home for as long as they can, for obvious reasons. And there's also an important distinction between your reasons for needing care. If your needs are primarily medical, then the NHS may provide some or all of your care free under its Continuing Health Care Scheme, or CHC. If your care needs are largely down to physical frailty, inability to dress, wash, go to the loo, feed yourself, those kind of things, those would usually not be covered by the CHC, right? So if your needs are a combination of both, medical and physical, then CHC might contribute towards some of your costs, the sort of medical side of things. There might be provision for adapting and equipping your home, stair lifts, bathroom aids, stuff like that, just to make life easier. Now, we need to understand the care funding system, number 2. It's a bit of a minefield, as you might expect. And again, it depends what it is that you need. Now, if you need any kind of care, you can request a financial assessment from your local authority. Responsibility for providing care, assessing your eligibility for it, falls to the local authority. Now, I don't know for sure, but I imagine there's probably something of a postcode lottery here, because I'm sure not all local services are of the same quality. But put simply, if you've got more than £23,250 in assets, including your home, you're going to be paying the full cost of any care yourself, and you won't get any help from the local authority. If your assets are more than £14,250 but below £23,250, Well, your income from pensions and stuff will be used towards your care costs, plus another amount called tariff income, which is essentially out of your capital. And then once your total assets fall below £14,250, the cost of your care will be borne by the local authority. Note that those figures are slightly higher if you live outside England, different in Wales and Northern Ireland as they are in Scotland. Now, as you can imagine, anybody owning their own home is going to be way over the upper limit, and is going to be responsible for paying their own care, even if they don't have many other assets. So it might be that they need to sell their home to pay for residential care costs, so they could stay at home maybe and do an equity release, perhaps to release the money to adapt to the home or whatever, but that might cause some difficulties. More on that a little bit later. And the third thing we need to know is that packaged financial options are limited now. Back when I started my career 2 or 3 years ago now, there were more options for preparing financially for long-term care costs than there are now. So it used to be possible actually to take out insurance called long-term care insurance, so that if you needed care in the future, the policy would pay out. They were always very expensive and difficult to underwrite, but now there are no such plans like that available. There hasn't been for years. Those few insurers that they were in that market quickly realized that the risks were just way too high and would have made the plans prohibitively expensive anyway. Now, there are something called immediate care plans available, which you can take out at the point of needing care. I'll go into a bit more detail on those in just a sec. But because of all this, because of the limited financial packaged options, planning options are limited as well. Now, if I had a tenner for every time someone has asked me if they can give their house to their kids but still live in it, so that technically it's not theirs when the local authority care fees assessment comes around, well, I could maybe pay for a week of my own long-term care, but not much more than that. But let's clear up the point. There is no clever plan that you can think of to get around the care fees funding system that hasn't already been thought about and shut down. If you give assets away to reduce your wealth, the local authority will just deem that you did so deliberately, and you'll have to prove otherwise. And please don't be duped by adverts claiming to circumvent the rules. Little story for you. About 5 or 6 years ago, I walked into my office building, and to see that a big sort of A2, A1 size poster advert had been placed in the hallway by one of the other tenants in the building, who was a will writer and a probate specialist. And this advert headline screamed in massive letters, "Don't lose your home and investments to care fees." I thought, that's interesting. So I invited her to lunch and I asked her to explain the premise and the mechanics. I'm a trust specialist myself, so we could really talk turkey and get into the technical details. But essentially the premise of this whole thing was just a trust, ostensibly set up for inheritance tax purposes, and obviously in doing so removed assets from the client's estate. So that was simple enough. But obviously you remove assets from your estate, it could possibly have the parallel benefit of removing assets from the care fees calculation, as long as, and here's the crucial point, as long as you didn't mention anywhere in the file that this was the plan all along to avoid long-term care fees. And I kid you not, in a restaurant having lunch with this woman, and she kind of said that last bit, we can't, obviously, we can't mention in the file that it's actually about long-term care planning. She kind of said it in like a stage whisper. It was comical, really, or sort of conspiratorial. And I kind of felt the need to point out the irony that she'd placed this massive poster in the hallway, just 2 floors above the restaurant we were eating in, saying, "Don't lose your home and investments to care fees," while on the other hand, suggesting to her clients that they shush about that, just don't mention that. And I suggested that all the local authority would have to do would be to take a photograph of her poster, and then every one of her clients that she'd arranged those trusts for would probably have their work undone. They will have still paid the fees for doing it, remember? Probably thousands setting up the trust. Oh, and, they'd be they'd be responsible for paying their own care fees, but they would no longer have the assets available to pay because they was all in a trust. Monumental screw up, really, but there you go. Such is the world we live in. So don't be duped by adverts claiming to get around the care fees system. But there are some clear steps to take if you or if somebody you love is getting to the point where they are going to need care. So let's look at everything we need to do now. So the first thing to do is to understand and claim any state benefits that you might be eligible for. So the first thing to do is to work out whether you're eligible. Now, if you're over state pension age, you might qualify for attendance allowance, which pays at different levels depending on how much help you need, whether it's just in the daytime, both day and night, or one or the other, or whatever. It's not means tested either. If you're younger than state pension age, you could claim disability living allowance instead, but that's being replaced by something called a personal independence payment, or PIP. And again, there's different levels of that, different components for daily living needs, mobility needs, stuff like that. Just like attendance allowance, it's not means tested. Now, if you're caring for someone for more than 35 hours a week, you might be able to claim carer's allowance. And if you're the one being cared for, make sure that your carer is taking advantage of that. It's money that they're eligible for. And I've often come up against some resistance from older folks about taking benefits as if there's some kind of sort of stigma in it, but there really is no shame at all. Not taking what is available after you've paid tax all your life is just nonsensical. So claim it, man. It's, suck it up. It's money that you've a right to have. Second thing we need to do is to talk to your local authority and your doctor. So definitely you want to get yourself in the system for care assessments. So speak to your local authority about that. Even if you know for sure you're going to be bearing the cost of all your own non-medical care, it's worth getting in the system, I reckon. There may be things that you can claim for that you're not expecting. Someone will likely come to your home, assess your care needs. At least in normal times, they might come to your home. More normal times than we find ourselves in right now. They will obviously ask for details of your finances, so be prepared with the list of what you've got. Quite often I've had to do that for clients, Local authority are coming around, could you give me a schedule of all my investments? Of course. They'll also ask about your needs, though, so be honest about what it is that you're struggling with. Again, there's no shame in admitting that you're not getting on quite as well as you used to. Now, all local authorities offer something called a deferred payment agreement, which means that they agree to pay for your care fees while you're alive, but you accrue a debt to them, which is eventually paid off by selling your house when you die. They will charge interest on it, and the amount of the debt that you can build up will be limited and linked to the value of your home, but it's definitely worth asking the question and seeing how that option might work out for you. You should keep up a dialogue with your doctor too. They may be able to get assistance aids for you in the home, an assessment to see what you might need. Remember, some of your needs might be covered by the NHS, so you'll need to keep your doctor or your practice nurse in the loop. Now, financially speaking, consider equity release. So if you are property rich but cash poor and want to stay in your own home, you could consider equity release. And that's achieved in one of two ways, either by mortgaging your home with a lifetime mortgage or by selling your home to a home reversion company. I don't like that latter option at all, not least because you will get so much less than the market value of your home. Even though you get a right to live in it, you don't get what it's worth. It just doesn't seem to stack up to me. Now, a lifetime mortgage can be pretty flexible these days. Rates are usually fixed, interest rates, I should say, usually fixed or at least capped. You can take out a lump sum or smaller regular amounts or more ad hoc amounts. You can usually port from one company to another. You've got the right to live in the property until you either die or move into full-time permanent residential care. You can choose to pay the interest while you're able so that the debt doesn't get any bigger, or you can let the interest roll up. But there are always implications, remember that. While a lifetime mortgage is portable to another property, mortgage company has the right to veto that move if they don't feel the new property is suitable for the mortgage. Your home is no longer fully your own, is it, if it's mortgaged? So you're going to need to bear that in mind. Remember, equity release should be a last resort always. Definitely consider alternatives such as downsizing to release money, moving in with family maybe, but it might serve a purpose. It's a possible string to your planning bow should the need arise. So consider equity release. Go in with your eyes open though. Okay, number 4, consider immediate needs annuity. Sometimes called a care funding plan. An immediate needs annuity is something you might want to consider. It's only offered by 2 or 3 providers at the last count, but it might help in providing for care costs. Works similarly to a conventional annuity, so you hand over a lump sum to an insurance company in return for an income for life. Now, there are some options you can choose which might help you to tailor such a plan to your specific circumstances. So, for example, you can choose to defer the start of such a plan, and that would reduce the lump sum you need to pay for it. So you might decide, well, look, I can pay my own care for 3 years, but after that, I just want to know that it's sorted, right? Essentially, you're paying in advance, but because the insurance company gets to keep your money in the meantime, they will charge you less for that. You're going to be drawing off the plan. The insurance company are going to be paying you for less time, so that can work out more favorable for you. You can choose for the income benefits to be indexed, that is, to rise each year so that they will hopefully keep pace with the rising cost of care. And you could even talk to your care provider and see if they will agree to fix any future rises to match the rises in your care funding plan. After all, they know the money is guaranteed to come in, so maybe they will give you a little bit in return and fix any future cost rises. If your care funding plan is paid directly to a care provider, then as long as that provider is registered, the benefits from the plan are tax-free. So you can't set one of those up and have it paid to your family member who's caring for you. It's got to be a registered care provider. You can also build in a death benefit very often. After all, the biggest issue with most annuities is that you hand over a big wedge of cash and you might not live long enough to get enough income back out to make it a good deal. Building in a death benefit will cost you, all right, but it may also provide some money back when the time finally comes. So a couple of mechanisms there: equity release, immediate needs annuities, useful, and you need to understand how they work. When planning for long-term care, I cannot stress strongly enough that you should live for today before you make sacrifices for possible care one day. It would be disastrous to not do certain things like take dreamed about holidays or helping the grandkids if they need it, just in case you need the money for care one day. I mean, you might never need care after all. You might stay in reasonably good health, maybe move in with family one day, see out your sort of frail dotage, quietly fade away and never set foot in a care home. Wouldn't it then be a shame not to have done all the things that you wish you had? I'm told that regret sucks, so let's not fall foul of it. So don't overthink your planning for long-term care. Deal with it when the time comes. Your options for pre-planning are limited anyway, so enjoy life in the present instead. Let me leave you with this most important point in all of this. Listen up now. Wealth gives you choice. Wealth gives you choice. If you've got enough money to pay for care, you can choose the home that you go into. If you don't have enough money for care, you're going to be at the mercy of the local authority to put you in whatever home they can find a space for you in. It might be miles away from your family. You can choose to adapt your home and stay there. Maybe move to a better suited property as your needs change. And if you have enough money, you can do all those things and continue to provide for your family as you go along. Remember, wealth gives you choice. I've always said money is a means to an end and never an end in itself. And personally, I can think of absolutely nothing better to spend my own money on than my own comfort and well-being when I'm old and knackered, right? And I'm sure you agree. So let's add our own end-of-life care choices as yet another reason to be intentional about what we do with our money and how we build it. And as always, seek advice, because this is a complicated area. The interplay between state benefits, care systems, local authority care fees, assessments, and the different financial aspects of it. Definitely seek advice if you're in any doubt. This is one of those areas where a good professional specialist advisor can earn their fees many, many times over. Okay, that's long-term care. Let's have a look at a couple of reviews that have been left. Staple Listen for Anyone says, somebody with an unpronounceable iTunes handle, honestly think that anyone aged 16 and above should be educating themselves about personal finance. These pods teach you small lessons which are priceless over the course of a lifetime. Excellent, thank you so much. Lee from Hawley says, a great starting place. For anyone starting out on their wealth building journey, this is a very highly recommended listen. I listen to a lot of financial podcasts, and this is by far the best for newbies. Thank you so much. Pete covers all the areas of personal finance in easy-to-understand language and should have written the book Personal Finance for Dummies. I didn't write that, but I did write the Meaningful Money Handbook, so check it out, petesbook.com. So thank you, Unpronounceable, and Lee from Hawley. Thank you for leaving reviews. And if you want to do the same, go to meaningfulmoney.tv/iTunes if you are of an Apple Podcasts persuasion. But if you're an Android user or listening on Spotify or wherever you're listening, if you can leave me a review, please do. A review, written review is great. just a star rating is just as helpful. It keeps the show near the top of the rankings, which means more people can subscribe and more people can be helped by this stuff. So thank you in advance. Now, don't forget, Meaningful Academy is open for phases 1 and 2. So that's financial foundations. If you're just getting started, learning about budgeting and how insurance works and what the difference is between a pension and an ISA and stuff like that. Then we've got phase 2, which is build wealth, which is the how to invest and how to plan your future and mindset and behavioral finance and a bit more intricate, detailed stuff. Phase 3 is still in the building. It's been a little bit delayed by my recent, fairly minor health issues, but still. So if you're interested in phase 3 and you want to know when we do our founders launch, go to meaningfulacademy.com, click to register your interest in the retirement planning phase of Meaningful Academy, and we'll keep you posted. Every Friday, usually, I send the Meaningful Digest email out to more than 5,000 people. It's a summary of what I've been up to at Meaningful Money throughout the week, useful links that I've found, anything really that takes my fancy. People seem to love it. I mean, we all get a lot of email, right? But I get emails back every week saying this is the one that they read. It's fairly quick, not too detailed, doesn't take much of your time. It's a quick scan, but always, hopefully, of value. So if you want to join the thousands of people who get that email every Friday, head over to meaningfulmoney.tv and just hang on about 3 or 4 seconds and a little drop down will arrive at the top, and that's where you can add your name and email address to join the mailing list. Okay, I'm going to take 1 week off next week as I continue to improve frustratingly slowly from this fatigue thing that I've been fighting for months now. And after that, I'm going to actually it'll be episode 12 of season 17. I'll be rounding off the season. But actually, I'm going to be rounding off 2.5 years of this podcast because we've worked all the way through from, millennial finance through planning with purpose and new accumulators and, and the home straight towards retirement, and now dealing with retirement planning and today long-term care, for crying out loud. One end of the financial life to another. So I'm going to be rounding all that off in an episode that I'm thinking I'm probably going to call There's Nothing New Under the Sun. Bible reference there, but, it's true that even as we've been going through it all, lots of the lessons are the same. I'm sure you've picked that up. So I'm going to be rounding it all off with that. And then where will the podcast go? Where will we go next after that? Well, you'll have to wait and see, so be patient. But that is it for this session of the podcast. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. If you've got any questions or comments on today's show, go to meaningfulmoney.tv/RP11. That's for retirement planning episode 11. Hope you enjoyed it though, folks. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Appreciate your patience as I'm not quite up to speed. Thank you for bearing with me and thank you for your support as ever. I'll see you next week. No, I'll see you in a fortnight. Cheers.